China think rising India will be the rival and very important obstacle of their dream of China. So that's why this India-China border is very important.
Welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. There was a three-way summit recently at the White House where the US, Japan, and the Philippines, their top leadership was present. And mind you, these are long term security allies. The US and Japan have been in a security relationship since the end of the Second World War. And the US has had military bases in the Philippines for a very long time. And there was a brief period when some of these bases had to be shut down, but many of them are being reopened. And as we hear, at as many as 9 bases in the Philippines are presently being operated by the US. So, what was the import of the summit in the White House more than a week ago? We're going to try and get into some of those details. I have with me Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a non resident scholar at the Heritage Foundation. Sorry, at the Hudson Institute. Sorry, at the
Yes.
Hudson Institute in the US. More interesting, he's a scholar on the India Japan strategic and security relationship. Dr. Satoru, glad to have you.
It is honor for me. Thank you very much.
Dr. Satoru, what do you make of this summit? Let's look at the India Japan and let's look at the US Japan relationship first. They are already treaty allies of long standing. Now, after that summit in the US, the US Japan relationship is now being elevated to a global partnership. What do we make of this? What does it mean?
In this case, this visit was historical, I believe, because US tried to make Japan to be the security provider in this region. Why can
Okay.
I say so? Firstly, Japan is planning to set up the new integrated headquarters, which means that integrated the ground army, navy, and air force by the March 2000 next year. So during the next annual year.
Yeah.
Along with this, United States also raised the capability of the headquarters located in Tokyo. They changed the rank of the leader of the headquarters from 3-star general to 4-star general, which is the same level with the Indo-Pacific commander. Indo-Pacific commander, 4-star general. So that's why United States think Tokyo is very important headquarters to deal with this region. And when we see the map, if the US and Japan set up the headquarters in Tokyo, what will happen? Indeed, geographically, East China Sea, Taiwan, and South China Sea are one
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
Because to deal with the security situation, for example, if China want to invade Taiwan, China need to control East China Sea and South China Sea to
I see.
isolate Taiwan first. So what happened in the East China Sea, what happened in the South China Sea are one set related with the Taiwan crisis. So that's why if the headquarters is located in Tokyo, they can deal with whole of this area without the time gap. Hawaii is far, Washington is far, but if the located in Tokyo, Philippines is very near, Taiwan is very near, all of the East China Sea, Taiwan, South China Sea will be one set. China side, one government, they can integrate effort, but the US side hasn't integrated their effort because different countries. But now we can do that. This is very important historical step of this visit, I think.
Mhm. So, are you telling me that there is now integrated integration of the Japanese and US militaries at the higher command level?
But they try to do that. Of course, Japan is independent country, US is independent country, so they cannot integrate perfectly. But
Yeah,
as a seamless command structure, command chain to deal with the military operation in this region, yes, they try to do that, especially in front of China. That is a very meaningful achievement this time.
so does that imply any increase in the US military presence in Japan? I mean, currently there are what, about 40,000 odd troops?
Uh, y- in this case, yes and no, because uh, US has limited resources. They need to care about the security in the world, like Ukraine, like Israel or others. So
Yeah,
that's why they cannot share huge resources in the Indo-Pacific, even if they want to do that. Currently, for the
mhm,
United States, rising China is priority. That there is no doubt. But at the
yeah,
same time, their resources are also limited. That's why US asked Japan uh, to share the more security burden in this region. To do this, they try to rise up the quality of the command chain. So
I
quantity
see.
they cannot increase, but quality they can improve. And so they ask Japan to share more security burden. That is disagreement, I think.
Okay. And is Japan rearming? We see reports of an aircraft carrier they're going to build.
Yes, Japan should do so. And Japan will increase their defense expenditure 56% next 5 years, Japan said last year. And indeed, this plan is still moving. So
Mhm.
that's why Japan will increase their defense resources. There is no doubt. The problem is it enough or not? Because in case
Mhm.
of China, the last 1 decade, they built a new ship and increased their naval ships 148. 148 is the same size with the Japanese Navy. Japan Maritime
Yeah.
Self-Defense Force has a similar number of the naval ships. So one
Mm.
decade, one Japanese Navy is China built. So under such kind of situation, even if Japan increased 56% their defense budget, is it enough? There is uh, big doubt. So that's why Japan need to increase their capability, improve their capability by rising the quality, or improving the effective use of resources to slope or to fill the gap between Japan and China. That is needed. One is the cooperation with other country, and another thing is, of course, uh, improving the quality. So, for example, if Japan use one missile, if the one missile hits the target, this is effective use of the resources. Even if
Okay.
fire 1,000 missile, but hit only one target, one missile hits one target, 1,000 missile hits one target. This is the same. So effective use of resources is very important.
Mhm. And what is your assessment of the Chinese Navy? Because it takes time to train people to operate ships, to understand strategy, maneuvers.
Of course, they have the assets now. But at the same time, when we see China's carrier as a military operation planner, indeed they haven't achieved any record uh, as an achievement in the war. And when we check the pattern of China's territory expansion, indeed, China still worry about real full-scale war. And instead of this, they try to steal the territory. This is a pattern.
Yeah.
What happened in the South China Sea is in 1950s when France withdrew that region, China takes half of the Paracel Island.
Yeah.
1970s, the US withdrew another half. And the 1980s, the Soviet troops reduced that region. China took the six feature of the Spratly Island. In 1990s, U.S. force withdraw from Philippines. That time they took the Misty Reef. So their strategies looks like water. If they find the power vacuum, the water is pouring and try to fill the power vacuum. So that their patterns looks like thief. There is something they steal it. So that's why they build a big military to change the military balance and find the power vacuum, and they try to steal it. That is a pattern. So to prevent this, we should not create a power vacuum. In this case, improving our military capability. If we cannot prepare enough quantity, we must improve our quality.
Mhm. So Japan is targeting what kind of an increase? And is it focused on aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines?
Nuclear submarine is hasn't talked yet, but about the strike capability, Japan is planning to possess, and Japan will
Mhm.
import 400 Tomahawk cruise missile from the United States, and Japan will develop our own long-range cruise missile also. And so that is very important. Why the US try to raise the capability of the headquarters in Tokyo? Because when Japan uses these strike capabilities, they want to coordinate with Japan. Because even if the Japan strikes China or other country, the United States wish that this should be the part of the US operation. Because
Mhm.
these strike capability still rely on the US system. For example, there is no enough satellite to identify the target, hit or not is rely on the information, and to guide these missiles, of course, Japan needs GPS satellite, which
Mhm.
is US satellite. So that's why even if Japan possesses strike capability, still they need the US support. And in this case, but if Japan possesses strike capability, of course, China need to worry not only the United States, but also Japan. And if Australia, India, or Vietnam, or Taiwan, or Philippines possess the strike capability, also China need to worry about this country also. So in this case, China, even if China's military asset is enough or military budget is enough, they need to divide multiple direction. So that's why to maintain military balance to deter China, this capability is one of the very important key. And in this case, the collaboration of this country it right improves the quality of the power, military power in this case.
Mhm. Very interesting. I'm going to take a short break now. And when I come back, we are going to talk about the Philippines and, of course, India. Back in a bit. Welcome back. I'm Surya Gangadharan. You're on the Gist, and we are talking to Dr. Satoru Nagao on the recent summit, the three-way summit at the White House between President Biden, Japan's Prime Minister Kishida, and the Philippines President Marcos. We are going to come to the Philippines part of it now. The Philippines and the US, Dr. Satoru, are again old treaty allies. They seem to have gone down a bit during the Duterte years and before that. It seems to be on the rise again. Clearly, concerns over China's behavior in the South China Sea is driving President Marcos to this. So, what is it that we can now expect between the Philippines and the US?
Of course, this is based on the geographical reality.
Yeah.
Of course, situation in the South China Sea is well connected with the Taiwan situation and East China Sea because view from China, these are the one set of the sea, one set of the area. So view from the western side, Japan is independent country, Philippines is independent country, US is independent country, Taiwan is independent. So this means that four divided headquarters is located. So how to
Hmm.
coordinate is a matter of concern. In this case, they established a trilateral meeting. Of course, there is no Taiwan's presence in the trilateral summit of the US, Japan, Philippines. But if they include Taiwan, it will be the perfect to control this region. So this summit is meaningful because these governments show the will to coordinate their move. And the situation in the East China Sea and Taiwan and South China Sea is one set now. That
Yeah.
is a very important message to China. And but another one is you have already mentioned. Indeed, in the past, Philippines government stance, especially under the Duterte government, they do not want to cooperate with the United States. But
Yeah.
now, under the President Marcos, their attitude has changed. And at the same time, in the past, military forces of the Philippines is nearly nothing.
Yeah.
Counterinsurgency, they have the capability, but counter China, nothing. But now Philippines possess BrahMos imported from India, and they have some ships provided by Japan, the US, or other country, what they bought themselves, and they bought fighter jets. That's also important. So this capability affects military situation in this region. Now, how to coordinate the operation is possible because Philippines possess military power.
Mhm. So, in your view, is the region drifting towards a confrontation of some kind? There's already enough tension in that region. Is it now going up the scale?
Firstly, we should not forget that this is effort to deter a war. So
Yeah.
that's why the purpose, view from the purpose, the war is not near, because the deterrence is improving. But at the same time, deterrence based on the simulation of war. So that's why the rising tension in this region is also reality. Because when Japan, the US, and Philippines, uh, why this country need to prepare this kind of thing? Because China is militarized the situation in this region.
Yeah.
China is provoking the South China Sea recently, but we should not forget that China is provoking the East China Sea around the Senkaku Island,
Yeah.
Japan, or the sea around Taiwan also. The Kinmen Island is also the part of it. So that's why the militarized situation is happen, which is initiated by China, and the other country need to catch up, adjusting the situation that is needed. That means that the tension is rising. So war we try to deter, but yes, risk there is exist.
There is a risk that things could spill over.
Yes, so manage able or not is very important, and these countries, U.S., Japan, the Philippines, try to improve the capability to manage the situation.
Mhm. Now, do you see South Korea joining this to make another quad?
If South Korea has a will, there is a possibility they will cooperate. But in case of South Korea, they face North Korea. So that's why there is a limitation. The area South Korea can cooperate or sharing resources to the other area. And especially, but South Korea has a good record of the military equipment exports. For
Yeah. Yeah.
example, the Philippines bought fighter jet from South Korea, or Indonesia bought submarine from South Korea. India's K9 is also came from South Korea. In this region, the South Korea's military equipment rides the capability of the many countries. So that's why South Korea is contributing in this area, arming this country. This is true, I think.
Mhm. I want to come to India. The Japan India security relationship, you have studied it closely. Does it exist? Are we doing anything at all? I mean, do you see some way forward?
Yes, so India's role is the new hope and the most important part of this cooperation, I think. Because view from China, if India make the pressure toward China, China, view from China, if they want to concentrate the Pacific side, backside is India. So that's why this is most effective pressure. But at the
Mhm.
same time, China also understands how important lies in India. So recently, China is provoking India also. That's why the Prime Minister Modi visits Arunachal Pradesh to check the infrastructure development, which is the support supply line or mobilized line for the Indian Army. And during that time, once 10,000 troops withdraw from the India-Pakistan border and redeploy to the India-China border.
Yeah.
So that's why China is provoking the India-China border, and since 2020, the high-tech weapons line up on the China side of the India-China border. So China think rising India will be the rival and very important obstacle of their dream of China. So that's why this India-China border is very important. So and recently, we know the more than four spy ships of China deployed in the Indian Ocean side, and they
Yeah.
try to persuade the Maldives government to cooperate. And Sri Lanka faced a huge debauch. And so, view from this situation, the view from the Indian Ocean side, China tried to make pressure toward India too. So under such kind of situation, uh, India and Japan should cooperate each other to divide China's military budget multiple direction, and it is possible. And at the same time, recently, India is also rising as a security provider in many areas, in the Indian Ocean region, of course,
Yeah.
India-China border, of course, but not only this area, but also in the Philippines, India provides BrahMos to the Philippines, and Jaishankar visits the Philippines and supports their claim, which is based on the international court verdict in 2016. So India's role is rising in this region. And if the United States asks Japan to share more security burden to be the security provider in the Pacific side, India and Japan can collaborate each other in many areas. So suppose Southeast
Mhm.
Asian country or the security related with China, both region Pacific side and Indian Ocean side. So that's why Kishida's visit, Prime Minister Kishida's visit to the United States and agreed with the U.S. and Philippines is also affect India-Japan cooperation or India-Quad cooperation, I think.
But it is not happening, is it? Are we even talking to each other about sharing technology or buying equipment?
It hasn't happened because Japan still hasn't succeeded to provide weapons to the other country. Only the radar to
Yeah.
Philippines was some exceptional case. India's case, India also just start their defense export. So we are seeking the new area, which is defense. But at the same time, all of the three armed army, ground armies, and navy and air force already start joint exercises with each other and show this is good message to make pressure toward China. So in the defense area, India-Japan cooperation is progress relatively fast. So that's why if our capability will be better than now, along with it, our defense cooperation will also be promoted by the capability. So, as a security provider, both India and Japan is rising, and cooperation is these two countries will promote defense cooperation. That is promised one, I believe, because we have the common enemy, China.
Mhm. So, last question. In the event of a confrontation, maybe in the Taiwan Straits or involving the US, Japan, the Philippines, what kind of a role do you see India playing?
Of course, there are many things India can do that. India's Taiwan policy has changed in gradually since
Yeah.
1995. Yeah. And so 1995, India starts the formal diplomatic relation with Taiwan. And 2008 was the last year the Indian public document mentioned about one China policy. And when the Modi government has started in 2014, Foreign Minister Srawaji pointed out that if China respect one China policy, China should respect one India policy, which means that
Yeah.
all of the territorial area of the India-China border, in China should respect India's opinion in this region. And China should admit India is right. So, and 2020, yes, Modi government joined. It was the first time the Modi government sent a delegation for the inaugural ceremony of the President Tsai Ing-wen in Taiwan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
1 month later, the Galwan incident has happened, but India change this stance gradually and steadily. That's why China cannot stop this move, I think. And so, and if India makes the pressure in the India-China border, it will be the good pressure to deter China's invasion to Taiwan. But at the same time, in this case, India needs strong confidence, military power in this case. But uh, if India has a well, of course, the other country can provide enough weapon or especially the beginning of the 2023, United States sent the B-1 strategic bomber. And recently the B-52 also deployed the Indian Ocean, I think. And so this was very important because B-1 can use many conventional warheads, Tomahawk missiles, and in the
Yeah.
India-China border, this is very effective to destroy the infrastructure, which is the tunnel, exit of the tunnel, bridges, airports. So, because mountainous region, limited number of these road, tunnel, bridges, very important supply line of the invading forces. So that's why the cruise missile is useful. So, and this B-1 is deployed at Karaikunda Air Base during the World War II. This was the base to bomb the Japanese troops into China. Full the area of the China is under cover of the bombing that age. So Karaikunda Air Base is very strategic place. And that exercises, not only US and India, indeed Japan's observer also joined. So that's why in the Taiwan crisis, yes, how to support? If India needs support, of course, the other country can support. But India is rising. India has enough capability to do that in some case. So that's why, indeed, rising India can contribute the security in this region if India has a will.
Yeah.
So, and indeed, to deter the war, this pressure is also important, but at the same time, we should include Taiwan as an international society. It's very important because in case of the relation with Taiwan, indeed Taiwan has already been the independent. So that's why the problem is how to integrate this to the international
Into million.
community. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is important. In this case, more political matter. India's support for Taiwan is very important. Of course, we do not want to make the war, or we do not want to provoke China too much. So we do not need to say China should admit Taiwan as an independent country. We can respect one China policy as their opinion, not our opinion, but as their opinion. But for example, the COVID-19 has happened. In this case, we can share the information with Taiwan. That is possible because they are part of the international community and indeed they are independent. So such kind of thing is uh, India and other country can cooperate each other because China's claim is a little arrogant. China try to force other country to admit China's opinion as their opinion.
Yeah.
So that is arrogant attitude. We should send a message to China. This is not acceptable, but we can respect your opinion as your opinion. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to sum up, clearly China's intimidation and aggression in the South China Sea is creating new coalitions. And while the US, Japan, and the Philippines are old treaty allies, clearly the situation around the region demands a higher level of commitment, perhaps even greater collaboration than has been the case so far, which is why it explains the three of them moving together. And as far as India's role is concerned, India has the strength. What it requires is the will. And whether the region is drifting towards a confrontation, well, only time will tell. Dr. Satoru, pleasure talking to you. And thank you very much.
It is honor for me. Thank you very much.
That's all we have for you on this edition of The Gist. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media. Thank you very much. Good day.